Greetings on this first Monday in Lent. This devotional is by Scott Stoner, and it starts with a quote by A.R. Rahman. Your inner voice is the voice of divinity. To hear it, we need to be in solitude, even in crowded places. Each Monday, we will introduce a theme for the week related to our overall theme of listening. This week, our theme is listening to ourselves. We start with a focus of listening to ourselves because we believe that how we listen to ourselves set the pattern for how we listen in all other areas of our lives, including how we listen to others and how we listen to God. If we are curious and open in listening to ourselves, we will be curious and open in listening to others. If we have a pattern of not listening well to ourselves, we will likely repeat that pattern in other areas of our lives as well. As the quote from A.R. Rahman states, when we listen to our inner voice, we are listening for how God is always whispering to us. When attended to, that inner divine voice can serve as a compass to guide our lives. It can also serve as a guide for how to listen to others. Rahman also reminds us that creating time for solitude and quiet within ourselves is essential for being able to hear the divine inner voice. In yesterday's reflection, Donna Wall wrote about soul wrestling. She described well the biblical stories of people wrestling with their inner selves and with God as they seek healing, guidance, and wholeness. Sometimes soul wrestling is necessary to help us remove barriers that impede our ability to listen more fully to ourselves. Making it personal. How might you create some regular time of solitude to listen to the inner divine voice this Lent? Are you aware of any barriers within yourself that impede your ability to listen well? I can say that one of the best ways to be able to hear the voice of God is by spending time alone. Last year, during Lent, I heard God telling me that maybe I needed to explore South Carolina a little bit more. In the early days of quarantine, I found that it was possible to go to some nature trails that happened to be open in spite of COVID. And I found beauty in God's creation. I took it one step further by May when the South Carolina state parks reopened, and I went on this 3-month journey to see every single state park in South Carolina. During that whole time, I was able to hear the voice of God. I spent much time in solitude, and I was perfectly happy doing that because I knew that God was telling me that in spite of everything that was happening in the world, whether it be racial injustice or a big pandemic, God was always there. I still feel that. I continue to explore as many trails as possible, and I'm very happy this Lent being out in nature and hearing the voice of God in nature with solitude. As for the second question, I'm all too familiar with barriers that prevent me from listening well, and in my case, those barriers tend to be pride and arrogance. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins in the Christian church, and I believe that the others are sloth, envy, lust, greed, and I may be missing one. But pride is an important one because pride is when you're proud of your accomplishments and you're too proud to admit that you do have shortcomings. When people have offered me constructive criticism in the past, I felt too proud to listen to them. Yes, I may be listening with both my ears, but in my mind, I'm still thinking to myself, I can't believe that you're finding fault, but I have learned over time that everybody's voice matters. I can learn from everybody. I like to think of myself as a highly educated person where I hold a doctorate from the University of Michigan. But having an education does not make one better than anybody else. Absolutely not. And that's where arrogance comes in. I have learned over time that you can learn from anybody, any age, with any level of education. We're all equal in the eyes of God, and we all have something to contribute to this world. I've learned a lot from members of our choirs, members of our handbell ensemble, our carillonneurs, and people who have not been a part of the music program. All of us have gifts to offer to this parish. All of us deserve being listened to, and it is important for me to realize just how beautiful everybody's gifts are. There are many gifts, but the same Spirit, as the Bible says. As we move forward, I would like to offer a piece of music for you, which helps me recognize that I do have faults and that I do have many sins. It's based on verses 2 and 3 of Psalm 51. The setting is by an English gentleman, David Halls, and it's called Wash Me Throughly. Wash me thoroughly from my wickedness, and forgive me all my sin. Wash me thoroughly from my wickedness, and forgive me all my sin. For I acknowledge my faults. For I acknowledge my faults, and my sin is ever before me. Wash me thoroughly from my wickedness, and forgive me all my sin. Wash me thoroughly from my wickedness, and forgive me all my sin.